Jesse, thank you for sitting down. Rain
Hey.
Coast Dog Rescue. I'm always
Correct.
tripping that one
Yep.
up. First and foremost, let's dive into that. What is Rain Coast?
Rain Coast Dog Rescue Society is a nonprofit organization, a society registered here in Canada, and we focus on rescuing and rehabilitating neglected, unwanted, abused, and misplaced dogs, as well as advocating and doing work with legislation as far as animal rights.
So you're pretty active with the legislation stuff?
Yeah, we big are, especially in the last couple years. We've been going for about 5 years now, but especially in the last 2.5 years, we're really active in legislation.
Well, I saw that Teddy story on your Instagram.
Yeah.
That just broke my heart.
Yeah,
man.
that was a pretty sad story out of the Cowichan Valley there, where a dog had been tethered for his whole life for years. And it was, it was really horrific. It was one of the worst cases
Brutal.
on Vancouver Island, the SPCA said, and the condition that he was in when found was just something horrific. I honestly have I've seen a lot of animal abuse. I've been in a lot of places and traveling and seen a lot, but for an independent person to own a dog and treat them that way for so many years while they're clearly suffering, I honestly have never seen anything like it. It's really appalling, to be honest. Yeah, it's really heartbreaking.
Well, how does that
Happen?
Yeah, it was just. I'm a big believer in trying to understand someone before you condemn them, right?
Yep.
Just because I've always felt that I get judged before I get sentenced way too often, and so I have a tough time wrapping my head the ignorance and the negligence on that, because if it was a one-time thing that happened, give or take for a period, God forbid it happened. I mean, it did, but if it was a small period, they learn from their mistakes and change, sure, but years, and I don't know how this just goes unnoticed, or if this person doesn't realize what they're doing.
That's right. Yeah. Well, definitely, I agree with you. Like, it was it wasn't like, oh, we went away for a weekend and
right.
the doors open and his dog got
it's just a tough
stuck or
time to
got caught on
rationalize it, right?
something, or whatever.
I don't know how that's a normal reality.
It's not normal. So the thing I try to mention to people sometimes with cases like this is there's no logic in something illogical. You can't search for logic in something so illogical where you'll drive yourself mad, because why did they do this? Will you ever find the reason in your head that makes sense? Probably not.
Yeah.
In their mindset, clearly it's a mental health issue thing as well. It is doing something like that.
It has to be, right?
And being okay with it.
It has to be.
I also like to say, though, mental health is an important topic, of course, to talk about, but it's not a scapegoat for committing crimes, and that's.
But it's definitely a precursor into more information as to why these people are doing it.
That's
though,
right. Yeah. There's one of the biggest serial killers in North America, from Gacy to Bundy to Dahmer. They were all actually had really extensive criminal records when they're juveniles for hurting animals and doing other things. So definitely animal abuse, and starting from a young age, it's a clear sign of moving forward where it's something that needs to be more addressed in a more professional and just caring, respectful way, but as well as serious way by authorities when they're young, and people like that, and their counselors and whatever it may be. So how these people let this happen? Well, clearly they just, something with them, they just didn't care. They thought it was either okay or they knew it wasn't, and just continued not to do anything about it. And it's just more disturbing because of how much she was suffering and how obvious it was. It wasn't like, oh, it was something they didn't know was happening inside, or it was a rupture. Like, this is years. This was the same collar as when this dog was a puppy. You're talking, inches cut into the dog's throat where its trachea was being exposed. You're talking about its head being 3 to 4 times the size from all the blood being forced in. You're talking emaciated and so skinny that he had been eating his own feces and living in his own feces. Infections up to his elbows. You could smell them from the road. However you want to put it. I have friends that live in the community around there and stuff like that, but the ones in the near community and neighbors, I'm sorry, I'm going to be real here, and I always try to be real.
Please do, and I want you to be.
There's no way that people didn't know about this. There's no way that neighbors did not know about this, did not smell it, could not hear his cries, did not know that their neighbors had this. The mother made a plea on Facebook, to give her daughter some slack. But, she's the mother of the daughter, too. You can't tell me she didn't come over to that house within all those years and see that happening. I don't know. Maybe she did mention something. I'm not here to condemn the mother or anything like that. I'm just saying people knew about it. More could have been done. It wasn't. And by the time that something was finally done, it was too late. And Teddy died shortly after from his injuries, from his trauma. and we have to do something about this so it doesn't happen again. There's all sorts of animal abuse on Vancouver Island, believe it or not, and around the world. Some people say it's due to poverty and environment, which can play a factor, but, it doesn't cost money to have compassion. So someone could be rich or someone could be poor or this or that or religion or this or live a different place, but compassion is free, love is free, and to show it. And I've been around the world and seen a lot of people in some of the poorest of places really love their animals, and I've seen a lot of people who are extremely wealthy neglect their animals. So for me, it's definitely a human being thing in general, but these two individuals definitely have some mental health issues, as well as they just didn't care. The reason I want to say that too is not to try to just completely condemn them, but because even their family in court, when I was in the courtroom, specified, it's just a effing dog. Get over it. And for them to openly say that after they know how heated the community is already about it and all of Vancouver Island, and to blatantly say that to people that are there, and the most passionate people are obviously the people showing up at the courthouse, right to their faces like that, it just shows that the family and them clearly knew what they were doing. They said they put in a plea of not guilty, so after that you can't plead insanity. So you know what you're doing.
You're conscious.
You're trying to fight it. I don't understand how they're going to fight that case, and the evidence is so clear, but nonetheless, there's just something special about this case, and unfortunately, these are just not very good people at all, I'm going to say, when it comes to animals, okay? I don't want to say...
You can't, but the evidence backs it up.
It backs
that claim up.
There were children in the house. I mean, they have, I think 4 or 5 children. To show your kids how this is okay, and to have them live around this, and to see the animal in that condition teaches them
what's next? There was a live stream.
Okay.
Was there anything else
exactly.
that they
what
just
is it?
forgotten
What does
about?
that show their children? You know what I mean?
Shit.
And
seems like everybody knew about this.
They did. That's the disturbing thing too, is that there's children in the house. So they saw this. Maybe they ended up playing a part in it, but they didn't know any better, right? Because they were taught.
Maybe that becomes normal. That's a potential that becomes a normal thought in their head.
That's right. And that's a very
okay.
sad thing for those children, because those children have to grow up thinking that's normal unless somebody's going to somehow change their perception on that. But that's years again. And I mean, yeah, man, it's a very special case, definitely this one. And
no doubt that's got to be.
People are very passionate
because it's close to home. First off, for us,
40 minutes away. Tough, right? You know what I mean? Especially with now our premier being John Horgan and his office being 40 minutes away from it. That happening, and just an overall we have animal rights here in BC, and they've become stricter after a few cases, especially the Olympic case with the sled dogs, but they're not being enforced properly, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, by the Crown. So the Crown Council has the choice on how to charge them.
Well, the animals are still classified as property, from what
I understand. That's a big start. That's a big thing where they need to be deemed sentient beings instead of possessions or property.
And that's a super complex, right? Because if you're gonna go that broad, what else are we throwing? Plants getting in there,
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
but it opens up the discussion, which is huge.
And these are domesticated animals too. So I think when you talk about plants or other animals, it can be a little different wildlife, because but when it comes to domesticated animals, I think cats and dogs, maybe even birds and bunnies and whatever else should be, as long as they're domesticated, should be under this act. You know what I mean? But you're right, it opens up discussion. What else is getting thrown in?
Such a complex talk,
in
right?
Quebec is the only province to actually have animals deemed sentient beings, because there was a high level.
But did they not just do the pit bull ban?
There was a high level. I know. Hold on a second here. I know. Contradiction. Welcome to politics and just human beings in general, right? So, what it was is, so they passed that legislation a while ago because there's lots of agricultural abuse in Quebec. Yeah. So they did that for the protection of that, but it fell under domesticated animals as well, and livestock and so forth. And then the city of Montreal turned around and tried to ban pit bulls, which they did essentially, but under that term, it was Mayor Denis Coderre, which was a male mayor, and it led to his demise, which is good, because he was, in my opinion, a very ignorant fellow that was very just stubborn and pig-headed and just kind of an idiot. I'm sorry, but that's my opinion, not everyone's. And so there was a woman, this lovely woman named Valérie Plante, who came up to run for mayor in Montreal, and she had very progressive, forward ideas about proper animal control and more ownership for the owner, or no more responsibilities for the owners, less responsibility on the dogs, because they know it doesn't work, and banning a breed or a look will never work, whether it be an animal or a human or whatever.
Well, I mean,
a belief.
It contrasts the racist belief so much, right?
And when I say it's a racist thing, people say, well, how's that racism? Well, call it what you want. You can call it breedism if you want, because they're a breed, but essentially a breed is a race.
To the dog,
that's just
right?
a language specific. So, you just can't do that.
Yeah,
So
well, that's not racism. It's like, why is that dog better than that dog? Well, because he looks prettier, duh. It's like, is that not the core of racism? Is based on
100%, exactly. So, and we're all the same inside. I mean, dog bleeds, we bleed, we all have organs, we all function. It's and all dogs are individuals. Some do have some traits that might follow them when in breed genetics. I mean, there's no denying genetics.
Well, for sure,
genetics
right?
is in everything in the whole world, from plants again to humans to your cats, to your dogs, to your kids, everything. So,
but I mean, that dog personality is real, because my dog is like identical to me in every way. He eats like in certain time of day, like I do. They
like, do start to take to us and how we are, because they understand our energy and our lifestyle and who we are. So dogs take to us. They're the most human orientated animal on the planet, maybe besides a chimpanzee or a cat. But like as far as domesticated, they are, and well, obviously chimpanzees genetically closer, but dogs are, oh my God, man, they are the closest things to humans than any other animal on the planet.
It's a very interesting
more
path,
loyal that you will find than a dog in any animal, creature, or being on this planet, period. So they definitely learn and follow us and our ways and perceptions and how we do things. So, that's always why dogs always individual to who they are, because of who their owner is or was. Sometimes you take on a dog that has issues, and you're not the person that created those. You're just now the person that's trying to help. So anyway, back to that is that Valerie Plante ended up getting voted in. A lot of people protested in Montreal. I have a lot of friends that run rescues out there, and they were huge advocates and leaders in this. Obviously, the Montreal SPCA was a huge leader in this. We were the only, Rain Coast Dog Rescue Society was the only rescue in Western Canada to actually raise money, fly all the way out there, meet with the Montreal SPCA, the cruelty team. We donated them half of our raisings. We used the rest to rescue as many pit bulls or Staffordshire Terriers or dogs that appeared to look like pit bulls.
Because that pit bull term is very misused, right?
We can get into that too. It's very misinterpreted. So what is a pit bull? What's supposed to be a pit bull? What looks like one? And is there, and so forth. So, but Valerie Plante ended up winning, which was huge, with the help of Montreal SPCA and obviously so many private citizens that just did a lot of advocating and got Valerie Plante in, and she kept her promise, and within months she removed it. And so there's no such thing as BSL in Montreal anymore, and hopefully there never will be. And then we had Quebec turn around, and there was already some BSL in Quebec, and it wasn't like a full scale one. BSL has different levels. Some of them are a full ban, like Ontario or Winnipeg, and other ones are just like, your dog needs to be muzzled when outside, or this or that, or
so
leash.
What is BSL?
So BSL. Well, if you want to, okay. So
just quickly, so just for anyone.
So BSL is a breed-specific legislation.
So it's just basically in a nutshell,
it's
you're
a
going
law
after a certain
that tries
breed
to ban a certain look of dog or breed of dog. But you never really know, because without genetic testing, and even then that can be faulty. And so again, it's just a ridiculous law that never works and does not make communities safer. It actually just targets responsible owners and their dogs, and it's prejudice, and it ends up killing thousands to millions of innocent dogs. That it's just pretty horrific what it is. It's banning of anything too, right? So, but anyways, back to that is that Valerie Plante won, the law changed, but then Quebec came around with a bill that they were trying to propose, which would make almost any dog that they wanted to label dangerous, and put them under this rule for the province and not just the city, obviously. And that's a different thing. Who
would be in charge of deeming what dog looks dangerous?
And that's what a lot of judges were asking. And it's very true. How do you know? And how far do you go back in genetics? And even that being said, even in animal control here in the SPCA here, in court, DNA testing can't even hold up in court here, because so many different DNA testing companies, some are very flaky and obviously kind of, they're just a scam because there's money to be made, and other ones could be more viable. But it's hard because you don't have every single breed of dog on a file in a database. So how could you ever properly actually get every...
Well, and from my understanding, every dog is virtually one or 1.5 steps away from a wolf.
Well, they're all
in
descendants
lineage, right?
of wolves, and they're all descendants of Greek dogs called
So
Molosses.
what kind of step is a pug taking to get to a fucking wolf,
So
right? Like, Jesus Christ.
Well, evolution and breeding,
or a Chihuahua.
and
It's like
interbreeding.
wolf, 1.5, Chihuahua. What are you doing?
Very interesting, yeah. But nonetheless, so that was we were looking at Quebec almost passing that law, which was scary because Montreal just repealed theirs. So for now the province to do that when a city just went against it, and we had all these organizations from humane societies to kennel clubs to scientists to you name it, to dog rescue organizations to advocacy groups to professionals in the dog trade, trainers, everything. We're saying, you know, this will never work. This does not work. Science has shown it hasn't worked in Ontario. It hasn't worked in Winnipeg or Manitoba in general, and it will never work. And so Quebec did a complete 180, and just as everyone thought they were going to vote this in, I think it was the health and safety minister and another couple of ministers said, nope, sorry, we're actually not going to do this. We're going to turn this around and say no.
Yeah.
And we're now going to try to install, owner responsibility laws and higher fines and more education, which is the only way you're going to get it done. Education is key.
Well,
I
got it right here.
Okay.
I said education. So, what can people learn where do we go and what do we need to know about this shit, man?
So because I guess it depends on the questions that you're asking, what you want to be educated on. I just want to kind of mention what BSL is, just if I can, just
get going, man. You got the floor, buddy.
So basically,
there's no rules here, Jesse. No rules, man.
Right,
it's just a chit chat, bro. It's just chit chat.
Right. So I guess BSL, I guess, put into words here it's a breed-specific legislation. Basically, this is something where it becomes a law, a legislation, or a bylaw in either a city or country or province or town or county or whatever you want to call it, where it targets a specific breed of dog, and it bans them or it puts rules out for them where they either have to be muzzled or always leashed or they're not allowed in dog parks, or there's all sorts of different stipulations in different places for some.
And these laws are only for one breed.
Well, usually they're specific to pit bulls. They'll say pit bulls is quite a broad terminology. Back in the day though, like you have in the 80s, it was like German Shepherds. In the 70s, it was 80s, it was Rottweilers. In the 70s, it was like German Shepherds that were targeted. And you had into the late 80s, into the 90s was pit bulls because they were being used by a lot by gangs and stuff like that. Because
it's the gangster rap movement of
in
the
LA
90s
and
Redmond.
Exactly.
Well, it's the famous story of Cesar Millan, right?
That's
he took on Redmond or Method Man's pit bull, right?
That's right. So, and in the 80s too, crack became a big thing. Crack came out, and then it came out in certain communities, and it came out everywhere. But
they were
crime and everything raised up, and things got really intense.
Too.
And it's not their fault that they're like physical specimens. If you look at the American Pit Bull Terrier, which is completely different than a Staffordshire Terrier or Staffordshire Bull Terrier or the American Staffordshire Terrier, but everyone categorizes them, or society tends to categorize them in one group when they're actually completely different. A Staffordshire Terrier, American Staffy, or a Staffordshire Bull is not a pit bull. I can't say that like a million times.
Well,
over.
no,
It's
I think that
not a pit bull, but everyone thinks that they are because they're classified under these bullshit laws, or BSL, breed-specific legislation, as we advocates and rescuers called a bullshit law, because it doesn't ever do anything or doesn't help with public safety. It almost discriminates against good owners and kills innocent dogs, and it costs a lot of money for the cities to enforce these when they never end up working. Again, bites have gone up in Ontario since they're banned 14, 15, 16 years ago. It's been for over 20 years almost in Manitoba, and bites, have gone up again, and it just doesn't change anything. It's a Band-Aid effect. It's like the public screams because something's happening. They want something done immediately. The government, to try to quickly please them, put something in play, and they don't really care if it's off facts or not. They do it to kind of shut the public up, to make them feel safe and cozy, when it's not a real solution. It's not done off education or science or facts. It's done off fear. And when laws are produced off of fear, it's a very dangerous thing, because that's ignorance. And doing laws from ignorance is very, very, very dangerous. So people have to remember that you have to educate yourselves before believing everything you hear out there. And even when educating yourself these days on the internet, it's a scary thing, because there's so much misinformation. There's so many websites.
It's been the common topic of all the podcasts we've been doing.
They're not, and sometimes you literally have to dig through 4, 5, 6 different sites to find them. I mean, you really got to get out there and find the credible information, and not just believe the first or even second or third thing you read sometimes now. Check your sources, check them again. And if not, you can ask around. I mean, obviously the SPCA's, animal controls, your local advocates and rescuers will mostly have some of your best information as far as that goes, and real statistics, animal control. But even then, They don't, because if you have a Chihuahua or a Lab nip or bite someone, they may not report it because it's okay. Sorry, you know, I'll get it. Antibiotics. It was a Lab. I don't feel that way. But when it's like a Rottie or a Doberman or a German Shepherd or a Pit Bull or Staffy, people get that fear from like it's the craziest thing, and they'll report it. So not all bites are reported, which is a problem. So if every bite was reported from Chihuahua to Great Dane in size, you know, and different breeds, you'd have way different statistics. But because people tend to report, you know, the Rottie, Doberman, German Shepherd, or Pit Bull bites or Staffy bites more, yeah, of course you're going to see higher statistics sometimes in incidents or bites with that, because that's what's being reported. What about all the stuff that's not? So statistics are a very gray area when it comes to anyone doing one, even the government, or statistics on anything BC Wolf calls, because they can hire
the numbers. You can lie with numbers, right?
You can hire different groups to do them in your favor. You can use only certain information from those reports to put out and hide other information. I mean, man.
Well, you don't you don't have to promote. You don't have to say that this is the one test out of the 1,000 we ran.
That's right.
That gave us the result we were looking for.
And who did you
right?
hire? And were they the government, or were they an independent, like were they a private group?
Well, and you can stack it up with these fancy words, double blind and placebo. And it's
all
like,
okay,
stuff. What the fuck are we really talking about?
And people may also feel that, oh, these people know what they're talking about because they're using certain terminology, which makes them feel like they're educated. But just because you're educated doesn't mean you can't be ignorant. There's a big difference between the two. Even the most educated of the people of the world, you know, can be ignorant. So everyone has their own views. I understand that. So nonetheless, the BSL basically was taken away in Quebec too. They went for the owner responsibility laws, which was great. So Quebec went from going into the dark ages like 3 years ago to like coming out of the light again. And it's amazing. And now they're definitely a province for the rest to follow. Same with Calgary. Calgary's the first city in Alberta, but they're the first city province to put in to ban BSLs. Like they don't have BSL there, they won't have BSL there, and it's all about owner responsibility there, especially in Calgary.
Well, that's the way it should be, especially if you're gonna classify dogs as property, then you can't blame the property. Yeah. Like nobody sued a coffee table for stubbing their toe.
So this
like
is
what the fuck?
And comparisons that I use too. So when it comes to these incidents happening for any dog, any breed, not just Pit Bulls, Labs, German Shepherds, Chihuahuas, Dachshunds, you name it, Collies, whatever it may be. Look at this. Okay, when you're driving and you crash a car, and your car is a certain model of car, like a Ford or something like that, or that, just like there's certain breeds of dogs, okay? When you crash that car, do you blame Ford? Does the person you hit blame Ford? Does ICBC or the cops blame Ford? No. Okay, they're blaming the driver. You were the one in control of that vehicle, so you were the one being blamed. When you drink alcohol and you get into trouble or do something stupid, we've all been there. Do you wake up really blaming the alcohol, Jack Daniels, or something got you into some criminal trouble? Are they going to blame Jack Daniels? Are they going to sue Jack Daniels, the company, in the court? No way. This is on you. You're a human being. You're responsible for your decisions and what you do, and you're in control of them, and you're the one who's going to accept the responsibilities, just like a dog. You can't blame the vehicle, the car, the make. You can't blame the alcohol because you're the one that drank it. You can't blame the dog because that dog was in control of somebody else. That person either taught it that way or is now unfortunately lost control by just a simple trip or a fall and didn't mean to, and had the dog from somebody else that wasn't taking care of it, and they're just simply trying to rehab it. And there's all sorts of different incidents and ways that it happens, but you can never blame the dog. It's ridiculous. You simply just cannot do it. It does not make any sense. And that's the analogies and comparisons I use all the time. It's the same thing with driving a vehicle or drinking alcohol. It's on us.
Yeah, no doubt, right?
It's on the human being. We need to start accepting responsibility for our actions, even if our actions cause a bad reaction or other consequences, and that's not who we are. That's fine, but you're a human being. Own up to it.
And that's fuck, dude.
Stop scapegoating other things.
I'm just learning that last. I wish I had that knowledge when I was a kid. When I lied about all the shit I did, like, hey, did you do X around the house? It's like, no. I wish I would have just been like, oh yeah, I fucking did it. Dude, life's so much easier. So much easier. So much less resistance and everything. Yeah. And even in these shitty and terrible, unfucking just and awful circumstances, again, I think things are differently if this lady that dealt with Teddy comes out and says, you know what? For 4 years, I was a fucking piece of shit. I don't know what the hell I was doing. Clearly, I have something wrong with me. I can't recognize this. Yeah. what do we do from here? Like, I have to accept punishment, but I want to fix this. Yeah. It's a different story we're having, right?
If she showed some remorse and was just like, oh my God, I need help, or I've been alcoholic or a drug addict, and I just made the hugest mistake.
And not in a way that she's blaming victim, right? And that's different. Is we can't make, you can't come up and be the victim of it.
People feel sorry so much.
You got to take the responsibility, right?
Adult and accept responsibility for
and it's
it.
A fine line, though.
And it's a very fine line. But you're always gonna have people's opinions on believing her or not, and she's just saying it because she doesn't want to go to jail or other things or this. It's always hard to know. But whenever someone comes out and just admits their wrongs and tries to be genuine about it, at least,
sure, right?
It makes you feel a bit better because they're understanding what they did was wrong, and they're gonna try to make a difference in their life so that it doesn't happen again. But I mean,
just admitting that you're like, hey, I
just
fucked up.
Admitting that you made a mistake, and that
time.
seems like in 2018, one of the biggest things for anyone in the world to do now is just admit they made a mistake.
Dude, I'm trying to do it every day.
It's crazy. Like more people and more people are scapegoating what they've done wrong, and they get offended because someone's making them feel bad for something they did wrong. When you really need to own that, because as a human being, how can you ever grow if you don't accept that you make mistakes? And if you don't admit that you make the mistake to learn from it, how can you ever better yourself as a person, and so on? And then we're just gonna have these people who basically, it's just turns into gaslighting and narcissism, and it's a dangerous thing once it goes down those roads.
You always got to feel like you're smaller than
and
the
you
room,
should
right?
never have to take any grief for the mistakes that you've made. But hey, you should.
I think you should, but I think that's part of taking the responsibility. Grief comes with that. That's part of it. You got to feel shitty for what you did. And then you go, hey, I don't want to do this again.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're like, ooh, what is this? Oh, I don't like this feeling.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't be a piece of shit
to animals. Or
else
you think that what you did was right, or you should be able to get away with it again, and it's just a different thing. But anyways, going back to that, Quebec's being awesome now with their dogs and dog responsibility and laws, and even now with certain people getting fines, they can use that fine if they turn around and hire a trainer. That fine will now be taken away if they use that money instead towards a trainer to educate themselves.
Well, dude, it's so important, man. Like going to the dog parks and shit, I see so many people who don't get communication or dog etiquette. Like they don't realize that if a dog's he's growling, it's not always a bad thing.
No, dogs, growling, even when they're wagging their tail in a medium tail wag, that doesn't always mean that they're super happy. It means they're excited. There's different signs that dogs show that people need to educate themselves on, with something called a whale eye, when they turn both eyes to the one side and you see all that white, and they're usually about to have some sort of reaction. Their head tilts off a little different.
Well, there's a Dutch word called a horo, because my girlfriend's Dutch, and so that's what we always say. Like, because Mello will go and he'll give you the side of his face, and then and we just go, oh no, here's a horo, and then he usually tries to chase his tail until he falls over.
And then sometimes they'll lift their lips, they'll growl. These are all warning signs, you know, and people miss them, and then things happen when they could have been seen. It's about educating yourself on dog behavior in general, and then your own dog's behavior, because each dog's individual. Some are a little quirkier than others, and some will barely show signs when they're about to lash out or they're uncomfortable, they're scared, and some really show them. So it's just about getting to know your dog really well and the signs, and keeping an eye on them, because like driving too, it's not always what you're driving you're worried about, it's everyone else's. So it's not always your dog you're worried about if you understand it, it's everybody else's. And I get it, most people don't want their dog to get into an incident. I get that, of course not, but like you can never completely stop them, but we can minimize them with education, responsibility, and you know what? And some people aren't going to like that I say this, stricter laws for parks, leash laws, and control, because we're actually behind in this. And as we get thousands and thousands of new dog owners every year here in our city, you know, you have more chances of incidents, and with those incidents, you have more council members and MLAs and the public screaming certain things or this. You know, we just need to get those proper, educated, responsible laws in place now, so that we lead for a safer future and a more educated future, and not just waiting for a big problem to happen or appear to happen and then just putting a Band-Aid effect on it again, like a BSL or something else. You know what I mean? We need to just educate ourselves now, and being human beings, we want what we want when we want it, and if we have money or we're this, I want a dog, I should be able to get one because I want one.
Well, and I'm sitting here, I got an idea. It's like, well, I look at it like this. We're going to use a car analogy, right? If you want to go get a dog, go get a dog, but understand that you're like a cyclist on the road. You don't have a lot of rights at the end of the day. We want to protect you and your vehicle, but you don't have a lot of rights.
And it's up to you to protect yourself.
As far as the hierarchy goes, you don't have a lot of rights. Now, if you want to go through the proper channels and say maybe you have to apply for a dog license in order to get a certain dog, and that requires basic
training, or
1
whatever,
hour
or,
course.
Yeah, 100%.
1 hour course
100%.
of your day, and then you can go. You're free to go.
I feel
Go
like
get your dog, right?
We might be there one day. I
Bro,
feel like we all might have to write a test in order to own a dog at some
But then it's like this. Hey,
But
if
I'm
you
not
give us
against it,
that
per
1
se.
hour, guess what? Any incident with your dog, like, you don't get ticketed for whatever. You give them a reason to go take that 1 hour course.
Yeah, exactly.
Aside from the fact that you're going to learn something, people need the greedy fucks,
people don't
man.
always want to educate themselves. Like, you can't force someone to be educated, and that's another thing I'll jump back to, is that when people claim, like, some people will say, oh, these people are mentally sick that abuse these dogs, it's a mental health issue. Again, yes, it is, but mental health does not scapegoat you from committing horrific crimes. Just because you might be mentally ill, that doesn't mean you get off of jail or get off being punished from what you've done because of that. I'm sorry, it's just not the way that works. I hope you get help. I hope whoever has it understands the channels to find that help and be rehabilitated. But again, you cannot rehabilitate someone who does not want to be. Ask any addict. Okay.
No, for
and
sure.
recovery,
You can't
force someone to be educated. Sometimes you can kind of make them see the light and come around to have the education, like you were saying, if you take that course. But I'm hoping that most people that get a dog would want to educate themselves, just like if you learn to drive a car.
Shit, man. I 6 months for me before I got my dog. I was reading shit for years beforehand.
But sometimes we do have to be forced by law. And yeah, I know people don't like to be forced to do things by the law, but if we just let everyone drive when they wanted to, whenever, it'd be mayhem out there. And we already let everyone get an animal however they want, when they want. And to be honest with you, in the animal kingdom right now, it's a bit of mayhem out there, because when you don't have people really educating themselves, some people want to, some people don't, but maybe sometimes it comes to a point where we do have to force people to take a course or understand what they're doing,
and that's gonna
in order to make it safer. But instead we're hoping that owners just come up to a realization that we all just need to educate ourselves, be safer in the community, you know what I mean, look out for what's going on around us, and just be aware of your surroundings and what's going on with your dog, and be responsible about it, because in the long run, it's unfortunate. Now hopefully you'll be the one that gets blamed as an owner, but for many decades and years now, it's always been the animal. Mm-hmm. The animal gets into trouble, it was the animal's fault. The owner gets to go home. I mean, look what's happened all up and down this island and all sorts of places. I mean, even the person in Montreal, when that pit bull ban was even brought up in Montreal because that dog broke through their fence and killed that woman in the next yard, that was actually a boxer. They claimed it was a pit bull at first, but it wasn't until 3 or 4 months later they found it was a boxer. But they didn't want to hear it by then. The mayor didn't want to hear it at that point, and they just went on. But if this guy already, he has this dog that's been dangerous, he's been ticketed before, stuff like that, and it broke through the fence and it got into her. I mean, that's his fault. But guess what? That dog got killed. That woman is killed. That poor woman's family. But that guy got off. And a lot of people are getting off. No, they need to be charged with a crime if that happens. That's accomplice either murder or accomplice to a manslaughter. I mean, my goodness. I mean, his dog mauled that woman to death, and he didn't necessarily stop it, either. And he'd been ticketed before. So all I'm trying to basically say is that the owners need to be held more responsible for their dogs and their dogs' actions, not the dogs themselves. Period. That's what it's all about, owner responsibility, and that's what it comes down to. And if it has to be higher fines and more leashed areas and more education programs for people to learn from, and get higher fines or criminal convictions because of certain things, then so be it. This is where we're leading to, because people need to wake up, and if we don't, we're going to go down that road where things will continue to get stricter. Because we have to, but that's actually for their own safety, our own safety, and our dogs. People just don't like to hear that at first. People don't like to be forced into new laws, but once they're there,
that's the shit
for
that's going to happen
ones,
if we can't figure
they
it
tend
out.
to be beneficial.
If we can't be adults about it, right? It's not going to work.
BSL, not a beneficial law. Owner responsibility and making owners more responsible for their dog's actions and what's going on, definitely a good thing. And that's where we will have less incidents, more education for dogs, better life for dogs, and it honestly, being that said, I'll break this out there too. Breeding laws. That's a big thing here I want to talk about.
Dude, well, it's so I mean, I can't really speak because I have a backyard bred dog.
And that's okay. I'm not saying that.
No, but I get it, man. Like,
right now,
that shit's so bad.
People, we only have more people coming up in the world, more people wanting animals, stuff like that. The thing is, overpopulation is a big thing. So obviously, shelters, and when you have so many dogs out there that anyone can put their hand up and get a dog from anywhere, it's kind of a problem because you shouldn't just have that type of access, and it's dangerous when you do because it's usually the type of access if they don't even have to go through a rescue. So there's no applications, there's no type of thorough process, or the SPCA or Humane Society. They're just on Craigslist, or they walk down the road and someone wants to give up their dog, or they know a buddy
how I got my dog.
or a friend. And sometimes that works out okay. Sometimes a dog
I got
free
a great
off
dog,
Craigslist,
man.
which I believe is illegal anyways, but say you get a dog for next to nothing, sometimes it's okay because you're a good person and you just want to be there for that dog. But a lot of people either want a dog, and it's not that they're not good people, but they just don't understand what they're doing is irresponsible and they're not raising it properly. But in their mind, either they don't see that or they don't want to accept it, because again, that means they have to admit that they're doing something wrong. In order to do that, you got to learn from it, and that means you made a mistake, and God forbid we're human beings, we make a mistake. So that's a big thing. Overpopulation also leads to more abuse because anyone can put their hand up and get a dog, which means obviously they can go into the wrong homes, they can go into the wrong hands. There's dog fighting out there, there's backyard breeders, there's some people who just unfortunately take out their energy, their negative energy on either their girlfriend, their boyfriend, their husband, their kids, or their dog or their cat. They're basically just a punching bag for their emotions that they can't control. And then you have people obviously forcing the breed to fight and stuff like that. And then plus dogs obviously end up on the streets, not so much on our island, but in different countries, in different places. Stray dogs.
Dude, when I played in what was that, Onion Lake on the border of Alberta and Saskatchewan there, in the reserve, there was probably at any given time 20 dogs just roaming the town.
Yeah, and really, really secluded communities up north and in Canada and all over the place. But the more secluded the communities, there's definitely a problem with overpopulation of dogs running rampant. And then obviously they get hungry and they start to starve. And it's not their fault, but they go back into what any of us would do as humans too, is they start to scrounge for food. Sometimes they're turning on each other and other things. But that's not the dog's fault again. Someone is letting them breed. They're getting out of control. There's not proper food. And it's so secluded, and these communities are so cold that they freeze to death. They can't find food where they would in a city, or they'd be picked up by animal control. There's no animal control out there, or SPCA or type of programs. You're off the map. Some of these places are so far away or even accessible by snowmobile or only plane. So it's, again, not the dog's fault, but yeah, in these communities, you definitely have big overpopulation issues and dogs dying, and culls too. They cull them, where basically they group them all together and they just shoot them until they're all dead. So it's about getting strict laws under, and breeding laws would be the best start for anything. You'll have less animal abuse, you'll have less dogs being put up and given up and surrendered, less dogs getting into incidents, and in the long run, over say 10, 20, 30-year period, you'll have better genetics, because you'll have, for me, my dream is that only kennel club, like certified kennel club breeders would be allowed to breed. Okay, so these are bloodlines that have been watched for generations and generations, and with paperwork and seen and temperaments and stuff like that. And as you start to put those into society, I mean, some people go, oh, well, we're running out of dogs for people. By no means will we. There's so many dogs out there that need help. There's so many dogs that will still be given up, or unfortunate situations where someone might pass away and their dog needs to go, or someone's sick or whatever. So, and there's so many out there in shelters and stuff like that and around the world that, don't worry, there'll be no shortage of dogs. The massive population, we're talking millions. So it would take decades upon decades for us to ever even get to a solid, structured level. But that's okay. We have to start somewhere, and we have to start in our generation now, so that the next generation and the following ones understand this, and we get to a point where it's better for all animals and humans on this planet. And that starts too for dogs, especially with breeding. So only kennel club breeders should be allowed to breed. Anybody found breeding that's not a certified kennel club breeder will have their puppies seized, and their male or female seized, spayed and neutered, and then their puppies will be kept, but their dogs will be given back, spayed and neutered, and they have to pay for that spay and neuter, but they get their dogs back. I'm not asking that their dogs get taken away or stripped of them. If they're backyard breeders or forced breeding or puppy mill, then yes, all of them should be seized. I mean, I understand too, this will cost more money for shelters and animal control, but as we have more people on this planet come into Victoria, in this city, we're going to honestly have more dogs, which means we're going to have bigger shelters. We're going to have more cats, which means we're going to have to expand our shelters. I know it's not something we want to do, but it's something we're going to need to do. Just like anything, when you have more people, you expand roads, grocery stores, food, everything around you.
Sure, right?
You have to have more of. So there is that. Now, obviously, education hopefully cuts that down, but we just really need to start with breeding, and that's stopping anyone from thinking it's not okay just to breed your dog for fun. It's not cute, and just because you make your money back or make a few thousand, that's not fun for the female. It's not necessarily healthy for them. So, backyard breeders, puppy mills, your homegrown breeders, they all need to be stopped. They should only be breeding by kennel club certified breeders, and the world it'd be a huge difference. It would just be a huge difference in our community, even in Victoria, Vancouver Island, and so forth. But that's where I believe we truly need to start in order to stop, abuse, overpopulation, and just mistreatment of dogs, and just dogs.
Doesn't it seem like an impossible goal, though? Like
there's nothing impossible in this world. There's nothing impossible in this world.
Is it more so though that you want?
We've reached the moon and Mars. You tell me we can't get dog population under control?
Well, it depends who you ask on those two, right?
That's true. That's true. Well, we reach the moon eventually, I think.
Yeah.
Whether we say when we reach it is a different story.
Now, is that more of an ideology of you want people who want to breed dogs to have to go through the certain channels, or is it that you only want the certain bloodlines to be able to channel through?
No, well, for me, I mean, as a rescuer, I'd love to just hear all breeding is banned for the next 10 years. I mean, sure, that'd be great, but I have to think realistically, and I'm going to have to work with another side of the table. So say you're a breeder, okay? But say you're a certified breeder, you truly love your dog, you maybe only breed it once a year for 2 years, and that's it for that female. She's allowed to recover, she's loved, she's fed, the way she's kept, everything like that. So you're going to come back at me with that. You're going to get upset. And the Kennel Club is a really big association that takes their dog care and love very seriously, okay?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So I'm thinking what you have to do in society is usually find an agreement, an in-between, right? A median which you both agree on. And I think that's something I can work with them. I don't think it's an impossible goal at all, because the
to
Kennel
me, it just
Club
sounds like you're saying, like, when I rationalize it in my head, it sounds like you're saying, if you're not a professional athlete, if you don't have the best genetics, you don't get to have kids. That to me, that's just how I'm rationalizing. That's how I'm having a tough time wrapping my head around it.
Let's look at it as athletes, though. Say you're looking at someone who unfortunately suffers from, really bad. Okay, oh man, this is gonna offend some people, I'm sure. But
dude, fuck it.
Say you have people with certain mental health genetics, okay. And honestly, you'll probably even have doctors give you an honest opinion that, yeah, it's probably best these people don't have kids, because the kids are really going to struggle because of these issues are genetic and possibly can follow down the line, or because these people have become drug addicts or alcoholics, they should not be having, kids, right? Like, because that can fall down the line, like fetal alcohol syndrome, all sorts of things that come from that. But what I'm saying is you're looking at athletes. So I'm not looking at more in that sense as like, oh, if you're, you have to be an athlete to play sports. It's just looking at that. Most of people who breed dogs, like puppy mills and backyard breeders, abuse them horrifically. These dogs are force bred. They're pinned down. They're raped by the males. They're thrown back into cages. They're shitting and pissing all over each other. Some of them are missing ears, fingers, the genetics inbred. They're not being fed properly. They're dying in cages, stuff like that. That's what you're generally stopping. 80% of breeding is that. So when I say make a law, that's just stopping mass amounts of abuse and overpopulation.
What I'm saying is like, but so what happens? How does Mary Jo, who wants to get into dog breeding, how does she get about it if you have to be CKC
most people
and KCK and all this stuff?
You would just simply have to get registered by the Kennel Club with your dog's genetics to be purebred. It's not like you couldn't go to a kennel club.
That's what I'm saying. So it's not so much about the bloodlines of the dogs. You'd rather see responsible breeders, right?
It's both though. It's like, it's not just trying to put out what's called selective breeding. Okay, selective breeding is just basically trying to put out more. I don't know how to put it in genetics, but selective breeding is just trying to put out better genetics.
Yeah,
because
for sure. Well, look at my dog, dude. I got a mixed breed because I got it because the breeds I have, they all have hip dysplasia issues. But with the mixed breeds, usually it gets watered down, right?
Most Mott's mixed breeds generally have less genetic issues. Exactly. The thing is that like what you're looking at though is like the genetics in dogs doesn't necessarily, like, a breed doesn't mean it's aggressive. You can't ever do that. But genetics always plays a part. No one can deny that. I truly believe that majority of anything is how you raise the dog. But you cannot deny that genetics is a thing. Genetics is very real.
Well,
you have to pay attention.
James,
so when people say genetics, yeah, so it is actually doing that. If you have dogs that have been abused, and that mother was abused and she had puppies, and you abuse those puppies for fighting or for more puppy mills and abuse, you're going to have dogs that are more prone to having heavy anxieties, separation anxieties, fear reactivity, aggression, other things. So if we can kind of slow that type of down, because again, it's not just about trying to get cleaner genetics. It's more about stopping the abuse, okay? That's what I'm mostly about here. It stops the abuse. But also, there's not a bad thing with having more prosperous genetics out there in the dog world in the next 10 to 15 years for everyone, because it's not like you still wouldn't love your dog if it didn't necessarily like other dogs, but there's nothing wrong with having dogs that are more openly friendly out there with other dogs if it's not even due to necessarily neglect or abuse or bad genetic. You know what I'm trying to say.
Now I'm getting what you're saying.
It's just you
you're
have
trying
to put
remove the bad by having these hurdles ahead of it.
I'm basically
right?
trying to stop animal abuse and the constant
sense,
surrendering of dogs and the massive profit that these people make and don't even pay taxes on. You're talking about massive tax evasion, okay, man? And I'm not, when it comes down to taxes, I mean, I'm not going to get there. I know we all don't really like paying taxes, but it's a big thing still. These people, when they don't have to pay taxes on this money, they're banking, and there's no laws around it really. These people can just continue to do this, these animals in an environment and make this money. They don't care who they go to for some of them. Where all kennel club breeders will do contracts. All of them will accept their dogs back if they're ever surrendered. They raise them and they breed them properly. That's what we should be looking at in general. It's kind of like looking at society.
It's like getting a driver's license.
You don't want someone that's smoking crack and alcoholic or living in a dumpster really having a baby at that time, because it's just not suitable for them at the time. It's not a suitable environment.
But I'm sure there's parents that smoke crack and can raise kids.
I'm not saying that there isn't, but I'm just saying most of all these breeders aren't raising these puppies. They're giving them to other people.
For sure. So it's like getting a driver's license then almost. Right?
But they're doing it for mass profit. So they're just looking at someone with $500 or $1,500 or a Frenchie, who knows, $3,000 at their door, handing them money. They don't know where that dog's about to go. They don't know if it's just going to be used to be mauled by another dog or used again to be rebred in a very forceful way after. Again, it's just going to stop majority of all abuse in general.
Yeah, you're going to get rid of the bullshit, right? You're going to put a filter in front of it.
100%. I'm putting a filter in front of it, but down the line, there are going to be some small greater effects where you'll just have more friendlier dogs out in the community, or just better temperamented dogs in the community, because the genetic lines are more selective, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, honestly, there should be breeding restrictions on humans, if you ask me. But that's a whole civil rights and human rights thing.
That's a huge.
But when you break it down, if we really look at it as everyone in a
theoretically,
in a whole,
you'd want the
best.
best.
We all can look around and be like, yeah, some people definitely should not be having kids, or some people should, but it's the right to do so. But with these animals, it should not be your right to do so. It's a privilege to have an animal, and it should be a privilege to be able to breed it. It's not a right. That's my problem. It's not a right to, in my eyes. It's not. Just because you're a person doesn't mean you should be able to get whatever you just want because you want it. I'm sorry. That's just not the way that I
It's
believe.
not your right to be able to obtain any by means of it necessary.
Well, I guess it depends what you're trying to obtain, in a sense. To have that to do so. It's not your right to just be able to go out and buy a poisonous gas to release into the atmosphere. I'm sorry. That would and it's not exactly, that's not really a privilege either. But for governments, it is, because they do sick things like that. Some of them. All I'm saying is that not everything should be accessible for all humans at any time just because you're a human. Just because you want it doesn't mean you should get it.
See, I contradict you there. I think I'm for. Oh, absolutely. I don't.
And that's
we can disagree. We can disagree, man.
Yeah.
It's all good.
But
well, I'm all for the responsible use of anything.
But you're going to a broad spectrum where we could talk about all sorts of things. Where I might agree with you, where because someone wants it, they should be able to get it. But we're looking again, and we're talking about animals.
For animals,
we're talking about animal abuse, and specifically dogs. So when it comes to that, that's more what I'm generating to. If we want to go off topic on other things, I'm sure you're going to find ways where I'll agree with you on that. Will differ from my opinion. But when it comes to just animals, we need to put restrictions on things because it's getting out of hand, and abuse is rampant, and misplacement is rampant, overpopulation is rampant, and there's only one way to stop it. How do you stop overpopulation from happening? How do you stop all these dogs from being born and from being so much overpopulated, and that leads to animal abuse, and that leads to other things, and death and other things? It's breeding, because they're producing more lives, and there's already not enough room for them as it is. And that's why I'm saying that, and that's why we need to put the restrictions on it. And again, I'm trying to want to meet in the middle, so I think kennel club breeders would agree with me, because this not only will bring them 10,000 times more business,
for sure,
but it'll again produce healthier, maybe more better genetic dogs out there. And maybe they don't have to be Canadian Kennel Club, where as far as it has to be a purebred dog, but maybe you should at least have to have the Kennel Club or a CRD or SPCA inspector house.
Some sort of
take your
hurdle
dog
to get into
to a vet at least, so the vet goes, this female is healthy, she's at a healthy age, she feels healthy, her ovaries, you can go ahead and breed her.
Get that filter
that's
there.
Fine. Put a filter there. We need some sort of process that screens out people, the negative people from breeding, and only positive people should be able to breed.
But then let me play devil's advocate here. What happens if my 9-month-old male breaks out of my house horny as shit because he's still intact, because we're not going to snip until 1 year, and he goes and knocks up the neighbors in heat dog,
so
right? What happens there?
If you admit it and you tell, animal control or SPCA, hey, this happened and I'm sorry this happened. Okay. Well, when they have puppies, you know what I mean? Unfortunately, you're going to have to surrender the puppies to us. Your dogs are still your dogs, but you're going to have to pay to get them spayed or neutered.
Or that black market's still there.
Or we will seize them, spay and neuter them ourselves, and then return them to you when you pay for the spay or neuter. Just like now, if your dog is loose, running around right now and is picked up by animal control, not only do you have to pay a removal fee, so a fee to get it out of the shelter, you'll mostly have to pay for a license. If your dog doesn't have a license, they'll make you pay for the license. Yeah. And if your dog is like sick or it has infections or something bad's going on, they'll take it to the vet and they'll then make you pay for that in order to get your dog back.
And
I'm not trying to take dogs away from owners. I'm just trying to stop overpopulation, which leads to abuse. And again, your dog gets out. I mean, accidents happen. We're human beings. That's life. But again, be responsible. Own up to it. Call the SPCA. Oh my God, my dog impregnated the neighbor's dog. It got out. They're gonna have puppies when they're born. You guys can come pick them up, or this rescue's gonna come get them. Let's say,
I've bred 3
and then we'll spay and neuter the animals, and that'll be that, and that's fine. But if you get caught breeding them and you don't admit it, and you're selling them, and you get busted doing it,
I can feel that.
Then they're seized. You get a fine, I think, definitely, and then your dogs are taken until they're spayed or neutered and brought back to you. And again, and then some people, they might not want them back because a lot of these puppy mills or backyard breeders don't want to spend the money to get them back.
John, you want to open that door for a quick second? It's fucking cooking in here. Let's just get some airflow for a sec here.
Harder than a devil's nuts.
I know. We're working on it.
She's fine.
You want to go get her? You go get her.
She's
go bring her in, man. It's all good. Oh, look at this cutie pie. Who do we got here? Let's get her up here.
She can't jump up. Actually, you can't even pick her up.
Pick her up, eh?
She's been so abused that you might be able to get a belly rub in, but generally, if you try to pick her up or touch her belly, she'll start to squirm a bit.
Oh, what a sweetheart. Yeah, get the cam on her. Hey, we get the behind the scenes. So for anyone who's listening, we got what kind of? She's a Dachshund mutt.
Jack Russell, Min Pin, German Pincer. Her name's Gertie or Gertrude. She's about 5 or 6 years old. We rescued her from a really bad situation where she was being very, very badly physically abused and emotionally. She's blind in one eye from being hit so hard multiple times. You'd think that she suffered from a glandular issue or a thyroid issue, but because she's clearly overweight a bit, but she gets about 4 to 6 hours of dog hikes a day. She gets, structured meals, and she has tons of doggy friends. So there's no reason why she should be so thick. The vet's a little stumped on that one.
Hey, nothing wrong with
blood work, but nothing to get. That's just who she is, and she's beautiful just the way she is, and I love her. And she was threatened to be euthanized twice by 2 different owners, and after she had been so abused, and I took her on, and she came back to us twice, and she's got very bad separation anxiety. We're like, if you were the only one who owned her and you left her in your house, you would come back to your house
torn up,
never seen destruction.
Dude, my big old husky,
from a dog that's
same
only
thing.
25 pounds, not even.
Yeah,
I
can assume she does the same damage as my husky. Yeah,
it's pretty wild. But when she's with a pack, she's so much more comfortable and better.
Right.
So with my pack, and then I've got her to be okay to about 3 to 4 hours alone in my house before she'll just. And now all she'll really do is just poop or pee from anxiety on the floor, which isn't so bad.
Hey,
most of my house
at
is
the end of the day, right?
Yeah, and I love her to death. So she just rolls with me now, and she's part of my pack and my family. She's kind of like a permanent foster. Maybe one day I'll find her a nice, older retired lady with 4 or 5 other dogs and a little rancher house with a fence yard and gardening, and that's where she can retire. But for the time being, Gertie.
Okay, well, I want to get you to speak upon Lebanon here, and then we'll, because I'm sure you'll go off on that, and then we'll we'll see where we're at from there.
So much coming up too in the trips that I'm doing. Okay, Lebanon. I was just in Lebanon, more specifically mostly Beirut, but I was in all of Lebanon. It's not a big country. I got introduced to Lebanon through a friend of mine, Lori Calef, who works for SBC International, and we sometimes do joint missions with that organization. They're amazing. They actually just brought back dogs from Chernobyl, Ukraine. They were the very first organization, along with Clean Future Sound in the Ukraine, which basically they were the first group allowed to bring dogs out of the exclusion zone. So they had to go in there with Geigers and check these dogs, and take these dogs to vets to make sure
are they
radiation
radiated?
poisoning. So they were able to rescue, I think they pulled 30 dogs out, put them all on trains, got them out of there, got them all vetted, make sure they're healthy and cared for, and now they're off to the United States to be adopted by families.
Off that fifth limb.
So that's the thing. It
Are
takes
we good with.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It takes multiple decades for something like that to come out, and the devastation in Chernobyl was just
crazy,
horrific. Man. And me being Ukrainian, my goodness. So that was Lori is the woman. She works for them and does that type of program. She introduced me to Beta. Beta is the Beirut for ethical treatment of animals.
I was wondering. I saw them.
This is like one of only 2 animal welfare organizations in the whole country. They're definitely the biggest. These guys are amazing. My best friend now, her name is Helena. She's the vice president. She runs it. Ooh. She's a badass. You don't mess with her. She at the shelter up in the mountains that they have about 6 workers from Sri Lanka and Lebanon, and they live there permanently, and they take care of over 650 dogs a day. Feed them all one giant meal, clean up after them, and watch them, and try to exercise them in the back, and keep them in segregated groups where they're safest, because obviously you can't have 650 dogs in the same group.
No, it's gonna be
so they're in groups of anywhere from 1, because they can't be around any other dogs, or 5 or 10 up to 100 to 150. It's pretty awesome there. It's actually pretty well controlled chaos. You'd be surprised how well it is actually managed and organized there. All the dogs are healthy. All the dogs are vetted, spayed or neutered. All of them are vaccinated. They do not euthanize. They're awesome. They keep dogs that, as long as they're not obviously in major pain and sick, but if they're just old or have some arthritis or whatever, they'll just give them whatever they need for it, and they let them live out their days there.
Damn, that's cool.
They take dogs in from all over Lebanon, from all sorts of situations. They're amazing. Wow. So I am just the person who loves to travel the world. I love to see cultures, people, experiences, and I love to help animals. So for me, traveling and helping animals is like my dream. Hence me talking about this dog rescue show that I want to get going in the future. But nonetheless, so I decided to fly out there. Lori introduced me to Helena. I said, hey, I've never been to Lebanon. Let's do this. The more extreme the country, the cooler for me sometimes. No doubt. So I flew out there. I actually happened to have a friend of a friend who's Lebanese and lives in North Van. So he kind of showed me around for the first day, and it was really good to me. And then he's got a couple rescue dogs himself that we helped out. And then the next 10 days I stayed with Helena and their organization, and we just did work every day. So I flew out to Lebanon. I was out there for about 12 days. Each day I'd go to the shelter. We'd help with the dogs. I posted a bunch of videos at Rain Coast Dog Rescue Society on Facebook, or on our Instagram, Rain Coast Dog Rescue 250.
We'll get you linked up.
You can check that out. And so we went out there. I did lots of work with them. While I was there, lots of stuff ended up happening. We got they found a puppy mill with over 100 dogs that were being force bred for up to 8 years.
This is the big story, right?
Yeah, and Helena, they found out about it Beta. Well, her brother-in-law turns out to be the Minister of Justice, so that kind of helped. So when it was discovered, she convinced him and the government to give her all the seizures and the puppies. They were allowed control of that property for the time being, because they can't just bring in 80 to 100 dogs into the shelter that haven't been temp tested, that haven't been properly healthy, spayed or neutered or vaccinated yet. So they allowed them to use that property. We went in there, we cleaned it up. We hired some people to live up there and take care of the dogs, and we went up there each day to see how they're doing. Some of them we spayed and neutered up there because they weighed over 150 pounds.
Shut the door on it. Bring her in and then shut the door.
And
sorry.
And 150 pounds. So we did them up there, and the other ones are now slowly just being brought, back up to proper health. When we first arrived, there was many dead dogs, probably over a dozen dead dogs already that had suffered. They apparently, from the guy who had been busted at the puppy mill himself, who was arrested, he was a Syrian gentleman who was apparently working for a Lebanese or a Saudi man doing this puppy mill. And they apparently he had not been paid for 2 months, and the dogs had not had food for up to 2 months, and he ran out about 45 days before that. So these dogs hadn't eaten for about 45 days. They were being starved. Some of them, unfortunately, turned on the ones in their own cell or ate the dead bodies, which was just horrific. So to see this is traumatizing. So we're trying to get this all, organized, where unfortunately, you have to say good, you say a prayer and you cry for the ones that are dead. You take them out of there, you bury them or whatever. And then the rest of them, you're just focusing on, okay, what do they need? We need to get their kennels clean. We need to get them cleaned up. We need to get them bathed. We need to get them vaccinated. We need to get them down to the vet to make sure that they're healthy, or any conditions that they have, we get treated. Get them spayed or neutered. Start feeding these dogs, my goodness. Start trying to walk them, understand their temperaments and styles and what they need. And that's a lot. So over 100, it whittled down to just over 80 that were left. So I got to work with them every day. That was a great experience. Even the gentleman that owned it called in after like the third day to Helena on her phone and her lawyer and was threatening them and saying, you know, I know powerful people. You guys better give me back my dogs, or you're this or you're that. And well, Helena's a boss. She's like, you effed with the wrong effing person. You don't know who that is. And he's funny because the guy claimed, he's like, oh yeah, I know the Minister of Justice and whatever. And she's like, you're an idiot. That's actually my brother-in-law. And she called him out, the lawyers, and he was like, oh. And so I know that most of those dogs were all his, but there was like 6 specific ones that he wanted back, particular. So that night, when we got that call at like 9 p.m., we were about to go home. That night, we're like, screw it. We drove back up to the mountains. Yeah. We grabbed those dogs. Called other volunteers to show up with their cars, and we went to the main vet, Animal House in Lebanon. These people are amazing. Oh my God, this vet and Dr. Basine, man, I love you, buddy. I know you won't hear this, but you're the man.
Hopefully it does.
You're the man. We brought him in there in the emergency, and we were there till probably 2 or 3 in the morning, and we got those particular dogs that he was talking about. We got them all spayed or neutered, and then we sent him pictures. All dogs are not good anymore. Sorry, we spayed and neutered your dogs, buddy. You weren't getting back anyways, but don't even talk about it now. So that was kind of, but that was a lot of work. And then going to the shelter each day, to the puppy mill each day. We got doing advocacy work. And then, we got a couple emergency calls where on one night we had to drive down into the south into primarily a Muslim area through some checkpoints where a dog was found on the side of the road in very bad condition. And when we got there, this husky, my goodness, the infections, the smells, the maggots, it was bad. We got him back to the vet. I mean, I have videos on our Instagram of that, and we had to shave him and treat him. I've never seen more maggots and stuff, but they'd actually made his way into his body as well, and he had blood poisoning. So we got him cleaned up. We thought he might make a comeback, and the first day he was doing all right. Second day popped up to eat, but then the next morning he collapsed and unfortunately passed away. It's a sad factor in rescue, even when you do your best, even when you think you're there and you got it. Sometimes you lose these animals, and sometimes you bring some back from the practical dead. It's just a factor of it. It's definitely very hard to deal with, but as a rescuer, you just you just keep moving forward, and you keep trying to help and understand.
Well, how do you keep going forward when you see shit like this, man? Like, that's a big question. I've been staring at it since we started.
I've never really known how to answer that question, really, to be honest.
I mean, I know obviously you can't stop, right? I get that. You're fighting for people who can't fight for themselves.
It takes a really mentally strong, physically strong, spiritually strong person to be able to see that kind of stuff and continue to work with it and deal with it and move forward to help. I think it definitely causes some people PTSD. A lot of rescuers quit, but there's different types of rescuers. There's your local rescuers, which still see animal abuse, don't get me wrong, and there's some rescuers where, again, you're going around the world into situations where you're literally finding the worst of the worst, right? Trying to expose it or shore people, or just trying to gain experience like me. I just want more and more experience. You can never have enough, so I travel the world to get experience from all over while being able to help and meet new people, cultures, and obviously the animals. But how do I deal with it? Well, I don't know, to be honest with you. I've cried so many times that I can't remember over animals when I'm not a man that you'll ever see cry. It's just never been part of our family. I'm not saying crying's a bad thing. It's healthy for you, but it's just we've never been big criers. But when it comes to animals, I'll bawl like a baby. So lots of crying helps you cope. Friends, fellow rescuers to still hang in there. And then knowing that sometimes, if you do go to some of these events where it happens and the dog passes away, the next one you save sometimes, or the next one and the next one. So the ones when you do save it, you really remember those times too, right? And you really try to honor those times as well as honor the ones that didn't make it, and, just take solace in the fact that you showed them, even if it's 5 minutes or 5 hours or 5 days or 5 weeks of love and compassion, something they've never felt before their unfortunate demise. There's no special way to deal with it. It's difficult. It's brutal. It's traumatic, to be honest with you. But again, I think I do it just because I love animals so much and love helping them so much that you have to continue on. You can't let that type of thing win, because then you let those type of people win. And then you have to continue on, because those people will try to continue on to do negative things as you continue on to try to do the positive things by saving them. And you just have to it's like battling evil, man. Good against evil, bro. It's like a never ending fight.
It's rare to see someone like yourself that just wants to keep going.
You just have to keep going. How
long you been doing this for now?
I've been rescuing animals for over about 12 years.
How long has Raincoast been going?
5 years.
I
used to be on the board of directors for a couple of organizations. Before that, I was raised in a home with a single mom who worked for the government protecting animals. So she was awesome. She always advocated for animals with me, to treat them with respect. I was part of Greenpeace from a young kid. And then I was around lots of wild animals when I was younger, and we owned a lot of animals: cats, dogs, lizards. you name it, stuff like that. I remember I used to go to the reservoir and catch snakes for fun and stuff like that. I've always been into animals. I've always loved them. It's just been something given a part of me, but it's definitely from my mother. My mother is my biggest inspiration for anything I do in my life, especially when it comes to animals. Ultimately, I'll never forget her, Linda Diane Adams. I love you so much. She passed away when I was 19 from cancer. Another thing I used to do, I used to actually run a charity for kids and families with cancer to help out local kids and families in Victoria.
Wow.
Not that I still don't care about that, but I moved forward animals, and it blew up in such a way that that's just what I stayed focused on.
What was it about the animals that made you draw your attention?
I don't know. I think animals, for me, they're just so compassionate. They don't really judge you. They always seem to, whether you could be disfigured, you could be in a wheelchair, you could have one leg, one arm, you could be all sorts of different races, religions, looks, beliefs, whatever you are. That animal loves you regardless, just for
it's
you
like
being
they got a
you.
radar system,
just
right?
for you being you, just for the fact that you feed it and you love it and take care of it, and it just wants to return that to you tenfold. They're the most loyal animal to a human you'll ever find. Even ones that are abused still want to love. I've seen animals that are so badly abused for years, but they still want to forgive, and they still want to come back and be able to trust again and be able to love.
Look, we got a point in case walking around right now, right? I mean,
they're so appreciative even when they're rubbing
so
their bum on your
happy.
floor, apparently. But yeah, they're just so appreciative. And for animals, they're just so compassionate, understanding for the most part, most of them, but especially dogs for me. Don't get me wrong, I love cats too, but I definitely dogs.
Fuck cats.
Dogs,
not fuck cats, but they scare the shit out of me, man.
Oh really? I used to have cats. I love
cats.
cats. I love all animals. Again, it's just misunderstood. If someone, it's just because you've either had a bad experience or no experience. And again, it's not your fault, but it's not their fault.
Oh, I would never. I love cats, but they terrify me, man.
Really?
It's their weird little. They're so
and
unpredictable.
You love Egypt.
Well, no, like I respect cats. That's
Cats
what it
are
is.
Gods in the Egyptian.
No, it's more so I respect them, man. Like this, they're too unpredictable.
They're more independent,
and they're too unpredictable.
They're more particular.
I'm a team guy.
They're more.
You got to be part of the team if you want to be. If you want to live in the house, kitty cat. You got to be part of the team,
animal.
bro.
They're very independent. They can be. Different types of cat in the cat family, but that's funny. Yeah, I mean, each people have their own perception, but yeah, I know.
There's some good cats.
I just
out there.
love
I'm
all
not
animals,
saying
man,
cats.
because they're just so chill and they're not really massively destructive to the environment. They're usually caring or they're just doing their own thing. Animals never judge, man. They don't judge. I mean, you might have a dog sometimes that may not like someone. I get it, but that's usually because of a past traumatic experience.
Not even, man. I use my dog as like almost the first line of defense when it comes to new people. And I say that because my dog's best friend that is not someone in my life is a rough around the edges guy who lives up at the complex up the road. And every other morning he bikes by and he goes, "Where's my puppy?" And he comes and wrestles my dog on the front lawn. And my dog loves that man. And I was kind of sketched out at first, but it was because my dog tail wagging when he first met him and jumped up and gave him a hug.
But you might, that might give that guy hope to wake up every day. He might make his day,
dude,
his life might become that much better because he even simply gets to see your dog in the morning for that moment.
Let me tell you.
A simple dog brings that man such joy in his life that maybe it keeps him from hurting himself. Maybe it keeps him from going deeper into drugs. Maybe it just keeps him from being so lonely that he cries at night. He has something to look forward to that gives him hope. It's just like, it's something I want to actually talk about too. That's just like the homeless with dogs. I don't want people to judge people that are homeless with dogs.
It's a very fine line with me too.
We work, Rain Coast Dog Rescue has other programs like the Pet Project where we accept all sorts of donations from dog beds, food, cat food, leashes, collars, even stuff for rats and rabbits, and we give it back to the community for people's in need. So we work with the Stan Hagen Salvation Army on Hillside and Quadra. Love you guys. They'll take in all sorts of goods that we give them. They'll separate it, and then people that have low-income families, homeless, First Nations, they can all come in there to get it because they can't always afford it or they don't understand or just whatever.
It's expensive, bro.
We help in certain communities as well, a lot being First Nations. We help with a lot of homeless. I mean, like anyone, though, I have seen people who are homeless who love their dogs more than anything you've ever seen. They're their everything. They're their reason to get up in the morning, their reason to function, their reason to do things, and they take such great care of them. And obviously I've seen homeless that don't, but I've also seen people that are extremely wealthy with mansions not take care of their dogs as well. Again, money does not buy you compassion. Plain and simple.
It's the human,
okay, love and compassion. It's a human thing, and for me, I just want people to be particular because it's not about being homeless. It's just everyone's an individual, and doesn't matter if you're homeless or not. Some people just aren't good to their animals, and some people are.
That shouldn't be the factor that determines if you get a dog.
And again,
I mean, I understand that having a home is obviously beneficial to owning a dog. Yes, but it's not the end all be all. Like, oh, you don't have a home. Okay, sorry, application.
And different breeds can be more suitable for living outside, but then again, if they have sweaters, blankets, so that's a whole other topic that I'm sure me and you could have a conversation about again one day.
Yeah, we could.
But Rain Coast has something called the Pet Project where we do give back to our local community that we really like to help with as well. So that's something that's big for us. And then again, with our legislation, education work, we also go into schools. Recently, I was in Journey Middle School in Souk. It was really cool. They had like like Follow Your Dreams Day, and Jesse Roper was there, the musician from Victoria. He's an
No
awesome
way.
guy. So
Yeah,
follow
yeah.
your dreams to be a musician. I'm a rescuer. I'm going to follow my dreams doing that because that is my dream. That is not just something I do. I don't get paid. I don't get money. I do this because I love it. Okay, because if you wanted money, you're in the wrong place.
Saving people is definitely not a way to. Wow, I mean that's
Depends
another
on what
conversation for another
Depends
day.
on what organization you work for, but smaller ones and us local. I'm just saying, and it's nothing wrong to take money. I know some groups do. You're legally allowed. I'm just saying, I do not myself. So again, I do it because I'm passionate. Different strokes for different folks. I don't judge either way. I'm just saying our organization. So we have these programs. It means a lot to us to work with dogs in all angles and not just rescue them from not just locally, which is very important for us to rescue locally and advocate.
That's the big thing I wanted to get you on here, man, dude. You went to fucking Lebanon, bro. You went to fucking Lebanon.
I'm going back in September too. There's a big fundraiser gala happening for BETA, the Beirut for Ethical Treatment of Animals, in September. I'm bringing back more dogs in September. From there, I go to Taiwan in November to work with my friends' rescue group out there to show what's going on. Next year, I'm going up north to expose what's going on with sled dogs, to rescue some sled dogs and make a little documentary about what's going on with the mistreatment of sled dogs. Not all, because I know some friends that own sled dogs that love their dogs. They sleep inside.
My old lady just came back.
They
Their
sleep
parents
inside,
came back from
but they still go out sledding because that's what a lot of them are born to do or love to do. But there's obviously areas of sledding up north where these dogs are not in the best conditions. There's certain companies that run sled dog companies, not all, but some that literally could care less about the dogs. As soon as the dog has any sort of injury, they'll just cull it right away. They don't care about it. They won't try to get help with it. They'll kill it. If the business isn't good, they shoot the dog. Not all, but some. Poison Kate Whistler, 2010, the gentleman that killed over 100 dogs. I won't get into that.
Holy shit.
But that being said, with a gun and not properly, even though it's legal in Canada to kill your animal with a gun or any type of utensil or a weapon in your home or around, as long as it's done humanely,
humanely and quickly was the wording.
Shot Gertie right now in the back and the head, and she died instantly.
As long as it's quick and humane.
Anyone call the cops they want, it's legal. That's kind of scary to me.
And that comes down to that property.
I think you should have a vet, should have to be around, or some sort of professional should have to be within the room or within the area. If not, I think they should have to be brought into the vet personally. But if you live in remote communities, but again, same with cat and dog fur, still allowed here. Same with cat and dog meat. You can still get cat and dog meat in restaurants. It would still be legal to sell it and eat it here. Point in case, there's some restaurants.
Shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's still not something that's been taken away. It was part of a bill C-246, but that bill a while ago got denied because they included wildlife. When you try to include wildlife with domesticated animals, it makes a mess. Because when you have hunting associations that have massive amounts of money to pay lobbyists and to pay politicians, it's really hard to get politicians to vote against them.
They'd have to label it though, right?
It's huge. So you really got to focus separately on stuff like that. I'm really stoked that they came back and did ban the grizzly bear hunt. That's amazing. But we also need to look back
That's a tough one because I hear the sides of the hunters on that, and they make a huge case for what happens when you let grizzlies run rampant, man. Like what happens when you overpopulate them.
The world's been functioning properly on its own without human beings for millions of years, and the ecosystem and the habitat. And each time we try to step in to do something, we usually end up screwing it up. Whether it be salmon farms, the BC wolf cult. Don't get me started at that. Okay, with the caribou.
What happened to Yellowstone?
Yellowstone thrived once they brought wolves back. But they took wolves out. Most animals faded away. A lot of birds faded away. A lot of areas faded away. They brought wolves back 14 years later, I believe it was, and it's thrived since. The BC wolf call is nothing but a scapegoat for developers, gas companies, oil companies, and farmers to have their way without being bothered by wolves. They're not killing all the endangered caribou. That's not true. The environments of the caribou are taking away and pushed back, so they're moving farther back into wolf territories, which have to move back into other wolf territories, which cause conflict. Again, that's another topic for another day. But Lebanon, yes, I'm going back in September. Next year as well, I'll be going to Iran. I just made a really great connection with a woman who runs a rescue in Iran and a guy out there that I follow on Instagram that goes out and feeds them every day, and he's Iranian, and he wears all black every day until the day that the government decides to change the laws when it comes to animal rights.
Damn, son, that's dedicated, man.
Iran's especially wearing black in Iran.
Dude, what happens?
That's a hot country.
What if you slipped up? What if you just had that one white shirt that you just weren't even paying attention?
You
just threw it on.
One polka dot shirt you wore out to the club. Yeah.
Or it's like an off black. It's like a gray.
And the media happened to be there that day.
You got to debate it. Like, come on, guys, this is bad lighting. It's a black shirt.
I watched it too many times. I didn't use Tide colors. I'm sorry. The black faded.
Bro,
it looks great. It's black. But it's just stuff like that. I like going to all countries, but the harsher countries to start with. These are also countries where it's going to be great for me to get a lot of footage for my show to create this pilot. Yeah. But I also got to get the mass amounts of experience and help And in a lot of these countries, it's the harshest of countries. Not a lot of people would just go to Iran for the heck of it anyways, let alone to help animals. So for me, and because I got connections there and people I trust, that's why I go there. I don't just float into random countries and start walking around.
List,
I usually make these strong connections, and then I'll kind of research these people to make sure they're credible and their organization's credible. We'll make friends, and I'll go out there and work with them. That's what I did with Beta. I did have a connection through a friend, thank God, but at the same time, it was such an amazing experience. I can't wait to go back. I love everyone at the Beta shelter, everyone who works for Beta. People in Lebanon were great. Obviously, it can be a tough country for anyone, especially for animals. There's not really animal rights laws there, but there's still tons of people that love animals that just hate to see anyone try to hurt them. And there's obviously people there that they're shot every day, stabbed, dragged behind cars, burned, limbs cut off. It's the very thing that happens there. But I'll tell you this, even on Vancouver Island, there's lots of animal abuse that happens. Maybe not to that extent, but trust me, there's lots of animal abuse on this island that happens that people will never see. It's everywhere. But more specifically in some countries, of course, and just sometimes upbringing and raising. It just ideals can be slightly different, but still, again, compassion just comes down to the human being, I think. But again, being raised in certain ideals, it's not easy, you know, and especially some cultures of religions. Some religions don't speak so highly of animals or dogs. I won't specify which ones right now, but anyway, so, you know, everything kind of plays a part, but when it breaks down to it again, compassion and love is free, and it's just how you feel. But again, that can be part of genetics. But yeah, I'm going to Iran, so that'll be cool. Up north, Iran, and then I kind of want to go to Pakistan. There's this thing on Facebook that's floating around right now about this island in Pakistan where all the fishermen bring the dogs that were going to be culled or killed, or people that can't have their dog anymore bring them there because they will get killed on the streets or mutilated or tortured or whatever. So they bring them to this island where some of them are struggling to survive, yes, but the fishermen come every day with loads of fish and try to feed them and take care of them.
It's like that Monkey Island.
Have
you seen that?
Thailand?
Yeah.
I've been there. I got pictures of it on my phone.
That's all the the makeup monkeys, right? Or the scientific experiments. And they
never mind, not those ones.
That's off Africa. It's like the most aggressive monkeys in the world. They live on that island.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about Monkey Beach off of Koh Phi Phi.
Yeah, I've been there too, dude. I was so hammered. I was letting them drink my beers and everything.
See, that's when I was there. Me and my buddy Kevin started picking up garbage, and everyone's like, "Why are you doing that?" I'm like, "Why not? Look at all the garbage."
Yeah,
but the monkeys are almost attacking us because we're getting in their space, but we're actually trying to help them.
Dude, they learned how to swim, is what the locals were telling us.
But it's actually, you know, feeding them that stuff. You can give them diabetes. They should
you get
pop and beer, and I know it's funny at first. I get it, people.
You don't get it. Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Oh no, you just don't understand it first, right? You think it's funny.
Yeah, because everyone else is doing it.
And then you watch the GoPro footage 6 months later. You go, is it good for monkeys to be drinking beer?
But then,
lots of beer?
You show your video from 2013 and 2018, and you get completely different responses than how people are now. You know what I mean? So I get it. I get both sides of it. I do. I mean, I'm not here to judge. I mean, whatever, you know. But just places like that. But I'm really excited to just keep traveling and keep helping animals and bringing awareness to the world of what's going on in those particular countries. Maybe showing the government they need to step up by bringing awareness and do something about it, and just being able to help. You know what I mean? That's huge for me. Mm-hmm. I just love animals and dogs so much, man. That's just my whole life's purpose. And again, traveling and be able to show the rest of the world what's going on, and hopefully make people come to see that, you know, we need to be better to each other, to our animals, and just as a whole. I mean, we got to keep this planet for generations and generations and generations, for us and our animals, and hopefully to become more peaceful, you know what I mean? And just more loving, and it's a
fucking beautiful message, buddy.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, so where can we go to support you? We'll wrap this guy up here. I think we're going for close to an hour and a half. Where can everyone go for information, support? The floor is yours for the plugs here.
Thank you. Okay, so you can check out our website at raincoastdogrescue.com. You can check us out on Facebook at Raincoast Dog Rescue Society, and you can check us out on Instagram at Raincoast Dog Rescue 250. And you can message us through any of those. Check out our adoptable dogs, read a bit about us, see what we do. I try my best to get back to everyone as soon as I can, so just be patient with me. We also have an email at raincoastinfo@gmail.com. You can reach us. Please get a hold of us. Even if you don't want to adopt, even if you just want a question about this is going on with my dog, or what's this, or what do you think this is best, we always try to get back to people. It's just about education too, so don't feel bad. You're not bothering us. We want to help. If you have a question, we'll do our best to answer it when we have time. And just
awesome. We're going to have to get you back on after all these trips, man.
I know.
We'll stay in touch. And
thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, man, this is awesome.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Sweet.